don't see it as a glamorous profession. I see it as a job I enjoy, but like everyone else, I get up in the morning and go to work. Some days I have fun at work and some days I don't, and it's as real as that.
They may not think it's a glamorous job, but there's obviously something they like about it. After all, Neil Peart, Geddy Lee, and Alex Lifeson have been together for over a decade. What's the attraction? I'm Mary Turner, and for the next hour I'll be talking with Neil. We'll hear why the trio is still fascinated with Rush, off the record.
I see red. That's my head. I guess it must be something that I read.
The new album, Grace Under Pressure. Who is this Grace?
Grace Jones. No. Not Grace Kelly either. Grace is the heroic quality, really, that's, it's very difficult to define. It's like the quality of quality. Everyone thinks they know what quality is, but it's very difficult to put in words. And Grace Under Pressure is a quality like that, too, that you see it demonstrated and you recognize it and you admire it. And you see it, of course, it's a common literary theme, and any hero of sort of Greek or Roman mythology in that one measurement of their heroicness was their grace under pressure, how well they responded in a difficult circumstance.
All that we can do is just survive. All that we can do to help ourselves is stay alive.
You're must be a voracious reader,
Yes,
sounds like.
yeah, I read a lot.
Were you influenced? Many reviews from several years back talk about Ayn Rand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was certainly a part of my reading, but it's same as people that focus on the science fiction aspect. Again, it was an aspect of my reading, but to me was a small part, and of my writing, too. It represented a small fraction of all the writing I'd done, and was just one device that I happened to like using, for certain things, and still do, too. The body electric on this album is a little piece of sort of science fiction frippery, that still gives me pleasure to do. And the Ayn Rand influence was basically, she represents a part of my reading, and I've learned a certain amount from her, certainly, but there was only one particular album that was directly associated with any of her work. So, again, it was an easy label to fix on, and people are lazy.
Ayn Rand is definitely not Neil Peart's only influence. In a moment, we'll hear how everyone from J. Alfred Prufrock to astronaut Sally Ride affects the music of Rush, off the record. I'm Mary Turner talking with Neil Peart, off the record. About Grace Under Pressure, you said it defines its type.
Yeah, I think in a musical, in a stylistic sense, in the same way that Moving Pictures did before it, it's not all over the place the way some albums are. And The Signals was an example of that. That album, stylistically, is every which way, because we had a whole bunch of new stuff we wanted to play with, basically. And we had to try it all out. Again, speaking from a musical songwriting point of view, we had to try out all these things and see how they worked, and see what we could do with them, and take them apart and put them back together, the little kid with a Meccano set kind of idea. And then I think this album really is the cohesive realization of all those experiments that took place on Signals. All that we learned from doing all that, we're now able to apply to this last album. And I think that it has an integrity to it as an album, from the first song right through to the last song. They all belong together, and they all sort of follow one from the other very naturally. And Moving Pictures was that kind of album too, I think, where it starts and it has really good dynamics, and it goes up and down and in and out, and everything seems to follow on. And it also it has that little thread of theme to it. After the songs were written, I sort of looked at it and saw this connection, and it became something that all of those songs somehow had in common without it happening by design. I certainly never sat down with that thought in mind, although those 3 words were written in my notebook. they weren't written as a title, even as a song title. They were written as part of a line in for a song, you know, and I just ran across that phrase a few times, really liked it, and wrote it down. And it was after the fact that emerged in my eyes, sort of bang, you know, out of the notebook into my eyes as a good title.
A world of difference, a world so out of touch, overwhelmed by everything, but wanting more so much. Call it blind frustration, call it blind man's lost in that it's cool to be so tough.
Distant early warning, for instance, many people would think is about waiting for bombs to fall, when in reality it's about
a lot of stuff.
but primarily the acid rain. Isn't
Well,
it?
it's just one element in it, really. It's a style of writing I've been sort of working towards over the last couple of albums that's kind of inspired by T.S. Eliot in an indirect way, but that style of pouring so much into it, so many images, and almost flooding the reader or the listener with ideas and images, so that you don't seem to grasp anything out of it, but at the end of it you're left with something. You're left with a feeling, or just an impression of it, I guess. And that's one thing I was getting out of that style of writing when I read it, and a prose writer called John Dos Passos writes that way too. His books are so flooded with pictures and images that you can't hope to grasp them all, or understand the intricate weaving of it all. But at the same time, after you've read one of his books or one of T.S. Eliot's poems, you take away something from it. You know, you're left with something that's inexpressible, some emotional response to all those words, because they're so carefully crafted.
You'd enjoy being a journalist, wouldn't you?
I think I would, yeah, except for the fact that it all gets thrown away so fast. But then again, when you think about it, pop music has a year-long lifespan at best anyway, so the fact that journalism only lasts a day or a week or a month, really an album, as far as its original conception and its validity in terms of modern music, and that doesn't last much better than a year either.
I disagree with you on that, because I think for many people to come up with the $8 or $9 or whatever a record album costs these days is monumental. And I think that people really play. I mean, I still have my first Stones album for mono,
yeah,
frankly. And, you know, I don't listen to them every day, for sure, but I still get off on hearing old records. And I think people really, a record becomes really a part of someone's life.
Oh, it absolutely does for me. I really love buying a new record and having it and listening to it and taping it and playing it in the car, playing it on my Walkman and all of that. But for me, as I was saying, I don't go backwards, you know. I don't like listening to old music. I mean, sometimes it's okay to hear it on the radio, but I wouldn't by choice go to my record collection and pick up a 10-year-old album and play it, because I know it inside out, off by heart, you know, because of that intensity of relationship. And a lot of people, music is a small part of their lives, and it's a part of the background of their lives. Well, of course, for me, both as a fan and as a musician, it's the focus of my life. So I tend to get, I think, a lot more intimately involved with the music than maybe than general people might, other than other people whose lives, too, are focused upon music.
Begin the day with a friendly voice, a companion unobtrusive.
What does Rush have in common with the Rockettes? Great legs? Perhaps. Neil Peart has the answer right after this, Off the Record. The delicate balance of civilization and savagery, coming up next on Rush, Off the Record.
This is a tune that's called Fly By Night.
Rush is a band that equates easy with boring. And after 10 years of working together, Neil Peart says they have to be pretty inventive to come up with new challenges. That's why they visited the home of the Rockettes. You mentioned that in the past you'd like to get a chance to sort of test new material in front of audiences. You had a gig at Radio City Music Hall.
That's right, yeah. This time we
of
figured we'd take a big chance. So usually in the past we would, after we finished writing, it's more for the purpose of getting us in good shape, really, for the studio, more than testing out the songs. Because, you can't expect people to comprehend a song the very first time they hear it live. It's more a chance just for us to go out and work as hard as a concert makes you work and come into the studio with that kind of conditioning. And normally we would go out and do, say, a week and a half around small places and small outdoor shows and that sort of thing. And this time the opportunity came up to do Radio City Music Hall, and we thought, well, that's so crazy, we just have to do it, because we hadn't played live at that time for, I guess, about 3 months through all the writing and holidays and so on. And we were going to go right out of that period right onto, one of the biggest and most prestigious stages in the world. So we thought, yeah, it was dangerous enough, it was a risk worth taking, because at this point in our career, of course, we pretty well have to create our own risks. And it's something that you want to do. For all of us, I think we want things to be never too careful. So we did it. We rehearsed for a week up north and then went straight to New York City and right onto the stage and played 3 brand new songs in the show that we'd never played before, with quite a bit of new equipment that we were using also. So it was fairly risky, but it worked out very well. I think that the days went by for us in kind of a blur because we were concentrating so much on all of these things and wanting the shows to be good. And there was, of course, when you play a city like New York, there's so much hoopla surrounding everything that all of that was going on. And I think we were kind of dizzy when we got out of it, but it was worth doing, and we were glad we did it.
One humanoid escapee, one android on the run, seeking freedom beneath the lonely desert sun.
I imagine there are terrific new instruments coming out, if not every week, every couple of months or so. There must always be something new in the field of synthesizers.
Oh, yeah. Between our Signals album, which was about a year and a half time before Grace Under Pressure, there was an enormous revolution in that period of time. I mean, we went into the studio to do this last album with a whole different arsenal of studio equipment, a whole different generation of synthesizers, the whole comparative school of synthesizers that they have now that can take any sound in the world, synthesize it and modulate it for you, and it's just ridiculous, and we came in this time and I have started working a bit with electronic drums, and all of this new stuff, we're coming into with a different world with us, and also walking into a different world in the studio. That was great. It is, yeah, it happens so fast that if you weren't constantly wanting to keep up with it, it would be terrible. For us, it has that same kind of hunger that new music has. New technology, you want to know about it, what it can do, if it can do anything for you, and at least know either way. So if somebody talks about it, you can say, yes, that's interesting, but I don't think it can help us.
Would you ever be tempted to play all electronic?
Never in a million years. No, I just couldn't imagine it. I like them for their difference. I'm a bit of a purist in as far as acoustic drums go, and I love them in the way they can speak, and the number of different voices I can get out of one little drum could never be equaled, I don't think, by an electronic drum. But it's more than that. It's an organic relationship with playing them and with sticking that drumstick into the drum head and the way it reacts and all of that. It's a very physical thing, but it's very satisfying, and the electronic drums don't give me that feedback at all. I use them now for about 4 songs out of the set, and there just isn't near the satisfaction or the involvement with them. I feel like I'm hitting them, but I don't feel like I'm with them the way I do with my real drums.
I know, it's the beating on wild animal skin.
Really, it's an essential atavistic thing like that, I think, yeah.
You've toured with Pat Travers, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
I got that from him. That's his description of drummers, as savage beasts who like to beat up wild animals.
Yeah, well, he worked with Tommy Aldrich for a long time, which is because he's an excellent drummer and a good friend of mine. And I learned a lot from him, too. And he has that approach, too, a very physical approach to drumming. And it's a satisfying thing, It's not something you have to do, but it's something that you really want to do. It feels great to hit him hard.
When we come back, Neil Peart explains why bilingual is better. Off the record. Now, Getty and Alex are big tennis players, I discovered when I found Getty wandering around the lobby of the hotel in tennis whites.
Yeah.
How do you spend your days when you're out on the road? I know none of you just sit around and vegetate.
No, I'm very active also, but for temperamental reasons, I guess I prefer more non-competitive sports and more solitary too, so I really enjoy bicycling. I'm carrying a bike with me on the road this year, which
So
I really
see it
like.
over there in
Yeah,
the
sitting in the
corner?
corner of my room. And I've been enjoying that a lot. It's given me a real insight into a lot of cities, too, that I've been able to tour around on my bike. So that's a very good thing, and I enjoy, not on the road, obviously, but cross-country skiing is a great passion of mine. I enjoy that a lot. And swimming, too. So there's all modes of exercise, apart from drumming, which is also, of course, a very physical outlet. And a lot of reading, too. So I have both the sedentary mental pursuit and also the very active physical pursuit.
Last year you all took French lessons?
Yes, in fact, I'm the only one still going, but we had worked so much in Quebec and had come to like the language and made friends there who were predominantly Francophone people and had to struggle in English to communicate with us. Well, it started to seem so one-sided, and plus the communication was limited, so we decided we were going to take it on. So we hooked up with the Berlitz School and started having a teacher sent out to our concerts, and after sound check and before the show, we would just have an hour and a half of French school. It's another thing that's a diversion in a way, but it's also a very satisfying one because, obviously, as is well documented with musicians, there's a certain amount of free time that you can choose to spend in a variety of ways, and with the time you have available, you can either kill it, try to waste it, or literally just kill the time.
Or kill yourself.
Yeah, you can spend that time, and for me, that's what I like about the free time we have on the road, is that I can find ways to spend it. So reading, there's never been a greater opportunity for a person who likes to read, because you're constantly stuck places where you can't do much if you're in a plane or in the bus or, sitting backstage or something where you are rooted to a place and not really free to do what you want, but at the same time you have a bit of time. And of course reading can take you anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So that's been very valuable to me in that sense.
He's a rebel and a runner.
Were you never tempted by life in the fast lane?
No, I find it all really unpleasant. I don't enjoy fame in any of its manifestations. I enjoy, of course, being respected for the work. Anyone would. And that, to me, is where it begins and ends.
Do you think that's what keeps you guys so sane for a rock and roll band? You really are very none the worse for wear after, 10 years together?
Yeah, it hasn't been natural, though. It's been a very conscious effort not to get caught up in that whole side of things. And I couldn't say that by any means are we superhuman, and not that we haven't succumbed to temptations and fallen into, bad things from time to time, but because the three of us have the kind of relationship we do, we always have each other to compare to or each other to be supportive in a case like that. So certainly we've stumbled, and we've had troubles coming to grips with it all. In reality, success and everything that comes with it is very difficult to deal with, no question about it. And you have to make a very conscious effort to deal with it in a healthy manner, and to realize that you want to maintain yourself the way you are, the way you know yourself, not what other people are trying to make of you. So you have to avoid not only the machinery side of it, but also the fan side of it. And they are, somehow they do exert a lot of pressure on you to be something that you're not, If you walk out after the show, and for me, my work is done, I've been through the stage and I've projected all I have to project. I'm finished. All I want to do is go home. And if you walk out after that to a big crowd of screaming people, it's horrible, but they are expecting you to perform again for them. They want you again to play that role and stand up. Hey, you think I'm great? I think I'm great too. Yay! Thank you. And really, there's no middle ground to walk there. There's no way of being natural in a situation like that. There really isn't. It's such a totally unnatural circumstance for a human being to find themselves in. There is no way that you can walk through that, as a normal person. So I just get totally uncomfortable, as I described before. But you can't play it. You can't play to that. You can't pander to what seems to be expected of you in that respect. Any of the adulation beyond that embarrasses me, frankly. It's not like I get arrogant about it or anything. I just really get embarrassed and uneasy if people recognize me, and I would do anything to avoid it.
Rush, Off the Record with Mary Turner, has been brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers. For all you do, this Bud's for you. By Levi's Cords. When the sun goes down, Levi's Cords come out. And by Panasonic Portable Audio. Panasonic, just slightly ahead of our time. This special program was written and produced by Marcia Richardson. Production and engineering by Bill Levy. Off the Record with Mary Turner is a presentation of the Westwood One Radio Network. Executive producer, Norm Pattis.
Hi, I'm Mary Turner. Join me this week for Rush, Off the Record.
I don't see it as a glamorous profession. I see it as a job I enjoy, but like everyone else, I get up in the morning and go to work. Some days I have fun at work and some days I don't, and it's as real as that.
Rush, Off the Record, brought to you by Panasonic and Budweiser on the Westwood One Radio Network.